1923 on that standard clock. So we're going to begin our evening right promptly at 1923 to honor the 1923 beginnings of the Ellensburg Rodeo, as we do this year celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Ellensburg Rodeo. My name is Daniel Beard. I'm a board member on the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame, so welcome. Thank you for being here with us, and many familiar faces now for our 4th month of doing these speaker series. They've been a lot of fun, haven't they?
Yes, thank you.
I'm super excited for this evening. I've got so much history, so many generations of the contribution to the Ellensburg Rodeo sitting here and here. That's wherever they want to sit. It's fine. We're just having a space.
Well, the microphone.
It's fine.
I don't need a microphone to talk.
We've got from the very beginning so many generations and family connections. I'm tempted to introduce it, but I think I'll just be quiet myself and let these guys tell you the stories of how they're connected to the Ellensburg Rodeo and just the family connections and their connections and things like that. I'm super excited for tonight. Those of you who were here about 20 minutes ago, I warned you I was going to do this introduction twice. So I'm going to go through kind of a schedule of fundraising, but 100 years only comes around once. So we're going to make the most of it while we can. So a couple announcements of some dates and some things to put on your calendar schedule and pull out the checkbook. We have out in the foyer out there is a quilt that's hanging up there. Kent, our board president, his mother-in-law created the materials, but Donna, who is also one of our board members, did the sewing on it. So handcrafted, members of the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. It's out there. So we are doing a raffle for that. I had the question earlier, when is the drawing? I believe it's at the induction. And you nod, is that correct? Yep. So at the induction banquet in August will be when we do the drawing. But tickets will be for sale at the speaker events, etc. During our events up till the induction banquet. The raffle tickets for those are $5. The big one, as I was saying, we're going to be doing the Ellensburg Saddle raffle, which is going to include membership to the Hall of Fame, and also a book that talks about the history of the Ellensburg Saddle. We've got much more promotional material coming of that, but we've got the raffle tickets are here in the building, and if you wanted to buy a raffle ticket and the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame membership tonight, we would sure appreciate that. That's a $100 raffle ticket, so it's a big price, but it's a big ask, and it's a big membership and a big benefit for the museum also. And the saddle is going to be super awesome. We're doing a dinner on June 14th. Tickets for that are on the Eventbrite. It's on the website right now. So June 14th, we'll do a celebration at the Hotel Windrow. It'll be a super fun night then. June 14th will be the dinner. And then June 9th will be the book signing of The Tradition Lives. Mike Allen did the last 25-year update in honor of the 100-year anniversary of the Ellensburg Rodeo. And we're very pleased to have Jan Ludko with us. Her husband, John, was the original author, did the first 75 years. What a resource it's been. I'll tell you, I have the copy of the book on my desk at school and refer to it quite often. And then I was laughing about this. I walked into Nate Bradshaw's classroom, and he also had his copy of the book on his desk. So it is such a resource for people who love the history of the Ellensburg Rodeo. We've heard it's selling very well already. The Ellensburg Rodeo has published that, and it's for sale at the Ellensburg Rodeo ticket office right now. Or you can buy it online also. So very pleased to announce all of those different things. And that's the end of my promotional. Okay, let's get back to the business. We have with us Tuffy Morrison, Jack Wallace, Sam Kayser, Jim Powers, and I wanted to say this, is there anybody else contestant-wise who, like, as a contestant in the audience. I know we've expanded the invitation to several people. So we had some speakers that we're going to call on to tell their stories, but I want to include the audience as much as we can also. So in mind of that, myself, I'll just kind of be emceeing a little bit. So if you guys questions as we're going through stuff, please ask those questions. Stories as we're going through that, please, tell those stories, even if it's about these people up here. Okay? Tell the stories. Okay? See, I figured we were going to get that reaction. So we will go ahead and begin. Tuffy, do you want to use one of the wired mics, or do we don't use this one? Here, I'll just do this one. And if you can, guys, just kind of keep it close to your chin, and be good with that. And I'll just kind of go through with that beginning question, gentlemen. If you guys would just think about that, introduce yourself, and then kind of explain, I think, the connections, the Ellensburg Rodeo family connections, generational connections and stuff there. We'll get into the stories as we get going, but if you just first introduce yourself, I'd sure appreciate that. If you want to start?
I'm Chuck Morrison, Chuck Morrison. My family's helped build, great-grandparents helped build the Ellensburg Rodeo. My dad was a contestant, and I've been a contestant pretty much all my life.
Yeah, you can say it.
Well, Jack Wallace. I got involved with the rodeo through my dad, and he started getting involved as a volunteer in about 1953, and he didn't rope very much. He was kind of farmed and was a dairyman, and had some dairy cows, but he always wanted to get to Ellensburg where he could get into saddle horses and rope and stuff, and he did, and he got acquainted with some of the ranchers and the cattlemen around here, and a couple of them asked him to come and volunteer at the Ellensburg Rodeo. So he did that for a great number of years, and he'd take me in there, like we run the stock, getting it ready for the rodeo. Us kids, we'd get to chase the calves and rope with a breakaway. And then when he retired, Ken McRae asked me if I would go ahead and take his place, and which I did, and I still am. A little slower now, but I'm still there.
So my name is Jim Powers, and I just want to thank Daniel for choosing this board, because there's not many things in my life these days that I get to be the youngest guy.
Ouch.
Just saying. But each one of these guys at some point tonight, I'll tell, they all had a profound effect on my life as in the rodeo arena and out. But my connection here, other than a contestant, was probably my Uncle Dick was from here, and he served on board, and he's got a little spot over there on the wall. And so I started competing, I can't even tell you what year, but anyway, when I got my card, that was the biggest thing that year, was that finally I got to go to Ellensburg. Anyway, although I do have a story about an earlier time, but I'm getting ahead of myself. And then as time has gone by, now I run the rope and chutes here now. And so I've kind of come full circle. That's a whole nother story, not something I ever dreamed that I would do, but it's been very rewarding and a lot of fun. And so anyway, that's where I'm at with Ellensburg Rodeo.
Hi. Hello, my name's Sam Kayser, and I told Jim I'd sit in a short chair.
What a nice
So now
name.
we're even about the age deal. My dad roped here. We moved here in 1960. He won the all-around here, and he just competed in the roping, the calf roping, and the cow milking. His big joke to me was, the next year they put it in the PRCA rule book that it had to be a standard event, because he'd won the all-around with the cow milk, and that was the last time. So he thought it was a moment of glory there when they had to change the rule book because of him. I was pretty fortunate. He coerced. It didn't take much coercion, but I roped a cow when I was a freshman here in '69. So, or when I was a freshman in high school. So I was fortunate to get some family support.
The next question, if we could go through this, I'll just introduce it this way. The subject for tonight is the view from the chutes. So the chutes being, for just, I don't know, a quick explanation. At the beginning of rodeos, they didn't really even use chutes. They just kind of would stub up horses or turn the cattle loose and go get them. But a way of setting up a fair competition is a place to kind of start from. They introduced wooden chutes and for bucking horses, and later on for the bulls, and roping chutes for the cattle to get everybody the fair start, the equal competition. So these gentlemen here are all the experience of competing at the Ellensburg Rodeo. And I'm sure we'll get to other stuff, but I just wanted to go through and kind of talk. Tuffy, you brought in pictures of your dad competing and then pictures of you competing, but I was just going to say, like, would you guys just introduce yourselves again, kind of going through there? What was your competition at the Ellensburg Rodeo? Is that okay?
What I competed in?
Yes, please. Yep. How did you compete here?
I first started with the county
Right up
calf
your chin.
roping. Started with the county calf roping. My dad started the roping club in 1940, and I was 16. It was when he was allowed to rope. And then by 18, I started riding broncs. Horseback horses. And from then on until 1980, I worked pretty much 4 events.
What were those 4 events, Tuffy?
I think they want you to speak up.
Yeah.
Oh,
They can't hear
because
you.
they put it right up on your chin, Tuffy.
They want you
I
to
think
speak
that
up.
mic is not there.
Calf roping,
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
bareback riding, saddle rope riding, steer wrestling, and then rope cows, of course.
Yes, sir.
And I think I quit riding broncs in 80, quit riding bareback horses in 79, 78. And I steer wrestled after that. And then after 1980, I started team roping. Well, I was team roping a little bit before that, but we didn't have much team roping. And then we, from 1980, well, probably from 1975 on, I was team roped quite a bit. And that's about it.
Well, I like Tuffy. I started with my dad, and he was a member of the Kittitas County Roping Club. And at that time, us little kids, we could rope too, but we couldn't compete, but we got to play. And that was fun being around the grown-ups. And when I turned 16, I roped in the county roping. It's the worst thing. I tried my hardest to win that thing. I went 3 times and never did win it. But anyway, getting back to the chutes a little bit with Daniel, we can remember where the West Grandstand is now. That didn't used to be there. The chutes and everything were right back by the track, and they ran through a real long aisle, and the roping block was, I don't know how long, it was 50, 60 feet deep, and run out on grass. Then they tore that down, and they think they built those grandstands, and the roping chute was in the northwest corner. Harry Charters come out there one time in the bulldogging. They had a pipe about that big, and the steer went to the left, and he hit his knee on it, and he was out of commission for quite a while. Then they moved it south a little bit, and it was underneath the grandstand. And I don't know, 15 years or so, they moved it to where it is now. And I think I'm hearing that they're going to move it again farther to the south. So anyway, that's kind of the way the arena has changed and where we started.
You never did tell them what you did in the rodeo.
Oh, well, I told them I didn't win at the county roping for damn sure. But I roped calves. I did team rope some. Later on I team roped more, but I never did team rope a lot at the rodeos. But calf roping was my main event.
Yeah, he doesn't give himself enough credit. Anyway, I didn't get to rope in the county roping club because I live in Yakima County, and I always said that Terry, my cousin Terry, made sure that the rule never got into effect that I could come up here because he didn't want me to take his thunder. Because he's won the county roping club. They're county roping at the Ellensburg Rodeo how many times?
It has just now changed.
Yeah, and yeah. No, I'm not gonna do it.
I don't know how many you won.
Yeah. Anyway, Terry, my cousin Terry has won the county roping at the rodeo. I don't even know how many times. I'm sure he would tell me if I asked him. But I roped calves and bulldog, and I did team rope some as well in recent years. But those guys have gotten so good that I don't need to embarrass myself. But anyway, yeah, I roped calves and bulldog almost all my entire career.
I wanted to say hello to Mrs. Ludka. Her husband, Mr. Ludka, was such a neat guy. When we were in high school, he covered our sports and stuff, and what a neat man. Sorry, did you guys go to Leavenworth or Kashmir when you moved? But I felt we lost somebody pretty important to the community. They're pretty neat people. I'm a timed event guy. Excuse me. I'm a timed event guy. We're the weenies in the arena. Tuffy was capable of working both ends of the arena and had the courage to do it. That might have had something to do with it. So he was a true all-around cowboy. I enjoyed the calf roping and the steer wrestling. Okay, Daniel.
Okay. So Tuffy, if you'd, I got this for previous knowledge from my part, but this is just for you, and then we can go on from there and maybe get some stories. But how many Ellensburg rodeos have you been to, sir?
Every one of them.
Say that again.
Every one of them.
Okay.
80 years, 83 years.
Yep. So every rodeo of your lifetime, you've been at the Ellensburg Rodeo?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's pretty cool. Okay. Can you just talk about, real briefly about your parents, please? Would you do that for what their contribution was for the rodeo?
Well, my mom, she rode race horses. My dad rode calves and rode saddle horses. That's about it. I was in this Hall of Fame, a historian for the Hall of Fame. I'm not much of a talker.
I have to add this. Tuffy came out to my house and kind of told me that he's not much of a talker, but I know if we get him going, he's going to tell some wonderful stories. And you guys know that too. But Tuffy is nervous enough, I heard this earlier, that he was over drinking a glass of milk today. So that's how nervous Tuffy was today.
That's pretty nervous.
Yes, it is. Gentlemen, just an introduction for everybody else. Jack was one of the members of the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. Jim, basically, and Sam were both circuit presidents for the Columbia River Circuit. And then Tuffy's lifetime of experience at the Ellensburg Rodeo. If you guys have drawn that experience, just kind of talk about your perceptions of the Ellensburg Rodeo itself compared to other rodeos, you know, obviously on the rodeo trail, et cetera, things like that. But what is Ellensburg Rodeo's place in rodeo? Tuffy, you want to take it first?
Well, it's one of the four Northwest best rodeos. And probably is the best. Pendleton and Ellensburg are probably the very best. Womack, Lewiston are good rodeos, but none of them compare to Ellensburg.
I agree.
Well, I have to agree with Tuffy. You know, when we were rodeoing a lot, I never rodeoed full time, but we've gone almost every weekend and stuff. But when you come down that hill out there, you come down this hill over here in the south, and you come down from Ryegrass. What a beautiful scene it is coming in here. And then the Ellensburg Rodeo is just very significant on the rodeo trail. I don't know, the background, there was one time they wanted to move this rodeo out where Dairy Queen and that area out there, but I was one of the big squawkers about not doing it. I realized they were going to have trouble parking, and it's gotten worse since then. But the Ellensburg Rodeo is just really a good situation for Cowboys to come and win a lot of money.
So, I'll take it back to the Chutes that, what Jack was talking about, because the Ellensburg Rodeo itself is an iconic rodeo, but that arena is, for a lot of us, like, I mean, it's a, I can't think of what the word is, but it's, you know, it's just, it was always someplace that I couldn't wait to be. Unique, yeah, it's unique, but it was a cathedral to me. I mean, you have to understand, I was the junkie kid. I would take the Pro Rodeo Sports News out of my grandpa's hand, and he wouldn't get it until I read it twice. I mean, I was all I wanted to do, and my earliest, I remember, you know, reading about Tuffy, you know, at that time when I was smaller, and then as I got older, you know, about Jack placing deep at Denver, and you know, and then Sam and I are close enough to age that I never read his name, but anyway. But to get to Sam and I traveled together for a number of years, so there's going to be there. This is how it always was.
My pickup.
In his pickup, always. Yeah, we never took it. Anyway. Yeah.
That pickup was pretty slow at that too.
Yeah. So, I lived through 3 of those shoot moves that Jack talked about, and it was just, I mean, I just couldn't wait. It didn't matter if it was, when I finally got old enough to go to a high school rodeo, the college rodeo, the 5-header, or when I was finally able to compete at the Ellensburg Rodeo. Just going to that venue was just the greatest thing for me. I wouldn't care if they never had a rodeo in any other arena. It would be there. I mean, that is the coolest place. And it has been that way my entire life. I've always loved that arena. So I think it's the best. You know, Pendleton's great, and I love Pendleton too, but the Ellensburg Rodeo Arena is the best place to go to a rodeo that I've ever been.
The rodeo, kind of a family. I was going to go the contestants and the people that make it possible for the rodeo, but I was going to go down our line here. I rode Tuffy's bulldogging horse on the first check I won in the bulldogging in the PRCA. And Jack and I went to Edmonton, Canada a couple times, Cheyenne. When Tom Ferguson was just coming on the scene, Jack and I entered the Spokane Rodeo and the one in Lethbridge, Alberta. And Tom and Larry were doing the same thing. And I remember Jack's daughter, Julie, who was the rodeo queen. Princess. I don't know, 12 years ago or 15. She sat on my lap because she was a little baby, so I must have only been 7. But we were going back and forth to the rodeo, and then Jim and I went to California a couple times in my pickup. It's just been really neat to develop.
Tell them when we went to Canada.
Yeah.
In my pickup.
Neat to develop the friendships, and I don't think we want to forget about, when we talk about this rodeo, my dad, after he quit roping, he said, well, I'm going to go down there and help whatever I can do, open the gate or whatever, because he said those people, whether they're opening chute gates or taking flank straps off, and the rodeo committee, and now it's the top hands. He said, we need to give something back to that rodeo. This is neat that we get to talk about what it meant to us, but without Ken McCrae and the people in the 1920s that started it. And they did, some of them didn't compete in the arena, and I think that's the gravy on top of everything. if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be sitting up here talking about our great times in the Ellensburg arena.
Personally, I'll interject kind of just joining in with these guys. I was raised up around the rodeos, but the way my yearly schedule went, I always had to go back home to start school with my parents before Labor Day. So my school would always start during the summer times before Labor Day. So it wasn't until 1995 when I was in college that I actually got to go to my first Ellensburg Rodeo. And just you guys were talking about the standard of what Ellensburg Rodeo in the competition was. For myself, just the gold standard in my own mind was always if something really bucked or a bucking horse or a bull, that was Monday quality. So you had a Monday horse or a Monday bull, that meant that they were the best of the best and going to be there at the finals of Ellensburg. And so that was always my touchstone kind of. It didn't matter if they ran a far or not. If they were a Monday type horse, that meant they were super good. So that was the standard from Ellensburg. Tuffy, let's start with you guys. Will you guys just talk about your generational stuff? Like who were you competing against? Some of at the Ellensburg Rodeo. So in your generation lasted 3 generations, Tuffy. But your generation, who were some of the other, the notable, the stars that were at the Ellensburg Rodeo?
Well, Larry Mayhead, Marty Woods.
Higher.
Ready to get
Thank you.
Larry Mayhead, Marty Woods. I stayed with Larry at Phoenix one winter, him and his first wife. He wrote calves pretty darn good. And he never entered it, but he wrote calves good. We practiced at the J. Hay Ranch north of Scottsdale twice a week, and rough stock events. Dean Oliver was one of the greatest. Wick Westpath was the greatest of all times in the bullfight.
Jack, kind of who's?
Well, Tuffy brings up my hero, Dean Oliver. He was the one that everybody looked up to at that time, and he competed and very competitive up into his late 50s. And when calf roping first started out, they were humongous calves, and you'd get off that and run down and leg them down. That's how everybody did it. Of course, they did on the small calves too. But then Dean figured out how to flank them down, and he did that. And then they went to the next phase of getting off the right to speed things up. But Dean Oliver was first, and then there was guys like Tom Ferguson, John W. Jones, and then you went to the Roy Cooper and Tom Ferguson, and then Joe Beaver, then Trevor Brazil. Like, we competed against all those guys. That's quite a run. It was fun to. And I actually at Cheyenne one year. Boy, I can't think of his name all of a sudden. But he was roping there in his 60s. In his 60s, who was do you remember? Anyway, I roped against him too. So there was almost 50 years difference in when I started and when it ended with those guys.
I think what's unique, what you see up here, is that all of us were that. I mean, I wrote my last calf at Pendleton when I was 54. Sam was well into his 40s. Jack, we all competed for a long time, and that's unique. Not very many people, I just realized that sitting here, that all 4 of us competed for over 20 years. And that's really, really rare. And so a lot of the same names that Jack talked about, I think I did get to compete one time against Dean Oliver at the end of his career, but also my rookie year, got to be really good friends with Tom Ferguson, and got to learn from those guys on through Joe Beaver. I remember us sitting at Red Bluff talking about who is this kid? You remember that? Dave Cannon and Louis Torsellis. we were sitting there eating at Red Bluff. The first trip that I ever took with Sam, and amazingly, I continued to rodeo.
In Sanford.
Yeah, in Sanford. So we're sitting there and we were talking about that. Who's this Joe Beaver kid? Who's this? Everybody talks about, eyes and nothing. He's just that's what Dave Cannon said. Remember the eyes? He's just another kid. Well, yeah, he was wrong. But anyway, so we've gone, we went through those. So I actually got to then compete with Trevor and Cody and Fred Whitfield and all of those guys in the calf roping and so we've all been able to do that. But it's amazing the people that you get to know and through this and those names. I mean, I once in a while will do a clinic and I'll tell kids that I had to stand in a box and look at Joe Beaver, Cody Ohl, Fred Whitfield, and Blair Burke and make myself believe that I belonged there, because those were some of the greatest calf ropers that I ever knew. And so that was really an honor, though, to get to rope with those guys. So, and Sam.
You notice Jim said we competed for 20 years. He didn't say win.
No, that's true. I didn't say win.
There might have been 4 or 5 years or a little longer for all of us, but it was, your friends are there and you want to see them because of the bonds you grow with them, so you keep going. But I know myself, competitive wise, I should have quit 6 or 8 years sooner than I did. You still want to compete, but you can't, if you can't practice, you can't beat them. And there was just something special about the family. I see Mike Allen standing back there, who started the Hall of Fame. I remember when he called me and said, will you help us get that started? And I thought, man, Mike, what the hell do I have to contribute? And he said, well, not much, but he said we'd still like to have you help. So it's nice to see him here. All this wouldn't be possible without him taking the reins a long time.
Before Daniel gets up again, I've got a Joe Beaver story, kind of like you guys. One year, we had them great big old calves of Eaton's, and Tex Tolliver and I were sorting them in the back, and we were taking the big ones off and the little ones off. So we had all the even ones in the middle. Well, this kind of fat kid kind of walks up, what y'all doing? Well, we're sorting the calves, we're taking the big ones off and some of the little ones. Oh, leave them big ones on, I like big ones. I said, good, you can help us tie them down here a little bit. He tied one calf down and went and sat in the shade and watched the rest of them. But I actually got to where I liked him. He ended up being a pretty good guy.
I don't know how to express this, but if you guys get the stories going, like, just keep going. I don't need to stand up and interrupt if you guys get the stories going.
So I got one that'd be great. So the Eaton cat. So one of the very few things, claim to fame that I have for the Ellensburg Rodeo is I was on a rodeo bloopers tape one time in the calf roping. And calf roping was not that funny, but it was. I roped a calf, and I'm not sure in what lifetime I could have gotten him down. He was so big. And it went on for, well, it'll only go on for 25 seconds. And the untied guys finally come in, and I'm riding back to the box. And of course, Jack, I've known him my whole life. And of course, he prepared the calves. And I go, man, I don't know about that. He goes, I wouldn't feel bad. He goes, it took 2 of us to get him down when we tied him. That made me feel a lot better.
That might have been the same year Clint Weaver didn't have any pants left on when we got done.
So
these guys all, not expressed it maybe so you guys can understand, but these guys talking about competing with the greats, they pulled their share of wins out of the competition also. So these guys deserve to be up here as showing the contestants and talking about that. They may do the aw shucks thing, but they're pretty skilled at what they were doing. Tuffy, can you talk about what it was like competing on both sides of the arena? Because that's not done by a whole lot of people. That's pretty rarefied air and competition-wise. What was it like doing rough stock and roping events?
He was pretty busy. He didn't get a chance to get nervous. Probably helped me quite a bit because I worry about things quite a lot. So, this going from one end to the other, quite often they'd help you. You'd be the first bulldogger out and the last saddle rope rider. They help you out that way. And besides, I haze a lot of steers. I mounted quite a few guys on the horses. The horses sometimes kept me going. They made enough money to keep.
Are you talking about like Tuffy, and no, it's fine. Are you talking about your horses like hazing for like Sam and stuff like that?
My bulldog horse, my hazing horse, kept me going quite often when I was lighting on my head. They'd bring in the check.
Mm-hmm.
What were we talking about?
What's it like to compete?
Well, actually, if you want to know the truth, I'm still competing in a way. I love competition. Now I go watch the grandkids compete, so I'm, still involved a little bit. But the work ethic you have to go through to get to where you can compete and have a chance to win something. It's unbelievable. I work all day long and go home and rope at night afterwards, and that's just what you did. And it really paid off one time for me. Well, it did a few times, but I've told this story a lot, but it was one of the highlights of my roping career. It was the first year I went to the building rodeos, which are the big ones that are just getting over with now. And a friend of mine who'd been to the NFR, so he knew all the ropes and stuff. But we got to Denver, and I'm the very first roper. There's 200 guys entered. And so I went roped, and I got kicked. And but so in those days, it was if you're up first, you were last. So I was the last roper at that rodeo. And I knew I had a good calf, but I was going to have to be on that barrier to catch him. And I roped him real quick and got him down. I just was pretty sure I broke the barrier. And they said 10-2, and the fastest calf before that was like 11-3 or 4. And Cy Taylor says, now all he has to do is wait 6 seconds to see if he's going to lay there. And he did. And when I rode out, it was a standing ovation. It was really quite a thrill. Another one happened here at Ellensburg.
Oh, yeah.
One of my proudest moments. I was 51 years old, and Coca-Cola used to give a $100 prize for the person that did the fastest calf in an event. They did that with all the events. And by golly, I roped the fastest calf, and I got the coat money, and you circled around, took your hat off, and it's amazing how many people in that audience, hey Jack, way to go. That's worth all of it when you make a good run.
So I told you about how all I ever wanted to do was compete here, and I had to endure my cousin Terry. They used to have the junior rodeo right before that. I don't know if many of you remember that. And you had to live in Kittitas County, and he held that over me forever. And we were kids, and so and then I finally got into high school and got to compete here. And after my first year of college, I came up here and lived with my Uncle Dick, and I spent every day in the arena with this guy. And he took my roping to the next level. My first year of college, I got to spend with Davey Smith. He was still going to school in Walla Walla then, and I don't remember, that wasn't the year he made the finals, a couple years after. But anyway, I was also on academic probation the next year because I didn't go to class. I just went and roped with Davey. But then, so yeah, I was. And then I got to spend summer with Jack, and And back then, I had my permit, and we got to go to some rodeos. But you could enter the Ellensburg Rodeos, or enter any pro rodeo, one of them, out as a local. So I entered the Ellensburg Rodeo first time. I mean, it was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing, right? And I ended up winning third in the second round of the bulldogging, won $750. I can't tell you another check in my life how much it was, but that one I remember. And I didn't think I was ever going to have another poor day. I was the richest man in the world, but I could have had to, if I'd have had to quit then, I'd have been happy, because it was great.
That might have
Turn
been
it on. This is how it was when we traveled. Yeah, we took this trip, but I did everything.
He might not remember any other checks, but he never won any. He left himself open.
Yeah.
We had to do it. On the rodeo, I remember when we first started roping, and it was a Saturday, Sunday, and Labor Day, and it was just in the time events. It was 2 head, and then I believe they went to a finals on Monday, and then the next thing they did is they went to the Friday performance, and the rodeo committee and the community has really built that Friday performance up, because you could have thrown 3 hand grenades in those wooden grandstands and nobody would have got hurt. Nobody would have got hurt. And just through the sponsorships, whether Roger Weaver was an integral part of that, the Gold Buckle Club with Scott, all those people are contributors to the rodeo that maybe didn't compete in the arena, but maybe they did more for the success of the rodeo than the actual guys that compete in the arena.
I might add, this be Tuffy and Daniel's part, but I think a lot of the reason why the Friday night rodeo has gotten so good is because the Ellensburg Rodeo Board has gone out and gotten several of the top stock contractors. So you used to be, come Friday night, they'd hold all those good horses till Monday or Saturday or Sunday, the weekend. But now they've got just as rank of horses and bulls Friday night as they do the other performances.
Yeah, I will say that. I hadn't been to the rodeo since I competed last, and then I think I did team rope here once, but I was up in the slack both times. Hadn't actually watched a performance until I had started running the Chutes a couple years ago. And Jack is exactly right. I forgot how good bucking horses and good bucking horse riders look in person. I mean, it's just when you, and especially in that arena, and on Friday night, it is really something to see. And he's right that the committee has done an exceptional amount, an exceptional thing in bringing in those stock contractors. You don't see many rerides. I mean, if it is something bad happened, horse fell down or something, it's not because they didn't buck. I mean, and I now get to stand, right there at the front of the rope and Chutes. And so I've got my crew that we hustle up and we get stuff ready for the next event so I can go watch the bronc ride. And because it's so exceptional to watch, and so they've done a great job with that. You're gonna talk some more?
Nope.
Sam, we were talking about big wins. You won the bulldog at Pendleton one year.
Yeah, and then they fired the judge. He didn't get to
Turn it on, Sam.
Would you leave it on, please, Jim?
I'm doing that on purpose.
Okay, one year, I think I was 41 or something, and had the best steer, and some way better bulldoggers had some bad luck. And I remember the interview guy came up on the track, and all the good guys, which were probably 15 years younger, were walking by, and I couldn't resist when I said, well, yeah, I didn't know they turned this into an old-timer rodeo. Whole day, nobody was buying me drinks. Well, because I didn't deserve them, but the good guys didn't think I was as clever as I did. Once again.
So again, he's talking about how he should have quit. We all rodeoed. We didn't win as much. He just heard him say he was 41 when he won the Pendleton Roundup. That's quite an accomplishment. What he didn't tell you was then that somebody borrowed his saddle for a year after that, and that was also deserved. But yes, Sam, I do have. I've got a million stories about, and then some of them I can't tell you. But Sam, he is very humble, but right, he doesn't want to talk about how good he is or how good he was and how good he did. But it was always, I learned, like I said, I learned from all of these guys, but Sam, I learned how to be a professional. Some of it was a little odd, but I remember he picked me up one time because we always took his truck. And I got in the truck, and there's Post-it notes all over the inside of the truck, and I'm starting to read them, and some of them had foul language on them, and most of them were about breaking the barrier, because the week before he had broke the barrier for a lot of money. And so that was my first introduction into the mental aspect of rodeo. But it must have worked, because I don't remember. He probably didn't break the barrier that week.
Well, yeah, he had it glued on a little note on the steering wheel.
Yeah, and we can't tell you what it actually said.
Tuffy and I can't remember who, you and I and Jerry went to Red Bluff, which Red Bluff just ended today. But you want to tell it how we got there and how hard it rained?
We had a pickup, just a cab level camper and a 2-horse trailer. There was 4 of us. And we headed out, and Jack was driving. He's a damn poor driver. We get to Mount Shasta, and there's a foot of snow.
Two-wheel drive.
No chains. Took us all night to get over Mount Shasta. We got there, and the mud was about 6 inches deep. That old red clay. And I was lucky enough to be able to place and ride Louis Torcell's mare. First time I'd ever met the man, and he let me have his little mare. Anyway, we had a really good time. It rained every day.
It did. I'll never forget that.
And if I still had that shirt, it would still be red on the back of it. Go ahead, Jocko.
That's about all there was to it. You got it.
Gentlemen, you guys talked kind of about some of your preparation routines a little bit, but I was going to wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, like what was rodeo athletes' preparation and the mental aspect, kind of those preparations kind of stuff, versus what you see going on now, just comparing stuff going on. So how did you guys get ready versus, what are you observing in rodeo now?
Well, Keith Weeks rode a few bucket horses, and my dad helped him quite a bit. And in later years, he built a marina with some bucket chutes in it. My dad would go around and buy some horses that thought they might buck and take them out to Keith's, and us kids would practice on them. And a week before the Ellensburg Rodeo, a lot of the farmers and ranchers would bring a horse in, and some of the horses came from the national forest that they were packing, that they was having trouble with. And us kids would get on them here and try them out. And the stock contractors, once in a while, would find one in there that would buck. And I watched the guys getting on today, and of course they don't have to get on colts like we did in wild horses. And they're jacking around in that buck and shoot. We used to have to sneak down on them as quiet as you could and ease in there and didn't jerk them around, just nod your head, never say outside. Just nod your head real slow. Things have changed now, they're breeding these horses up. In my day, a lot of the horses came from the old combine horses from the wheat country. And they were part Persian and part wild horse. And a lot of those horses went on to buck because they were broke to lead. And a few of the wild horses come from the Indian reservation, but very few of them, because they were wild and they would hurt themselves usually before they could keep going. And those combine horses were broke to lead, and they were a little more gentle in the chute, and they were pretty athletic. They were part Persian, and they were really tough and long-haired and thick-hided. Today they're breeding them up. Years ago, the stock contractor would have 20 head of horses, and he'd have 4 or 5 real bucking horses. And the rest of them would be what we call hoppers. And you had to really do something good to place on the hoppers. You had to wait and draw something you could buck you off before you could win anything. Anyway, that's about it.
Well, what we did, I did to get prepared, you just practice your rear end off. Hope you were ready to go and draw good when you got to the rodeo. But now these guys, it's, and you know, a horse, that's a lot different now too. You roped on what you had. And fortunately, I had a couple of pretty good ones over the years, and I had some that weren't worth a damn either, for that matter. I didn't win anything then either, but now it's really pretty much athletes on race horses. It's just gotten so much competitive, and guys have studied it. They're giving schools everywhere, bronc riding, bareback riding. Speaking of bareback riding, they were really having trouble getting bareback for a while. They had a couple of bareback rider only schools. I think they might have had that in Wyoming. I'm not sure who did that. But anyway, right now, there's a bunch of them young bareback riders that are really, really tough. And it's fun to see that progress.
I just say something.
Sure.
In the bareback riding, we only had leather handholds. We didn't have the hard handholds like they do today. And our handholds set right on the horse's leathers. These set up about this high so you can get underneath it.
Yeah.
They're pretty much tied on.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to see that. We couldn't, when we were riding, we couldn't get as wild. We had to stay close to them horses. We couldn't be flying around. If you didn't, you were gone. You had to ride, you took close to the jolt with your spurs.
Yeah.
And today it's a lot different. It's a lot harder, I think, on the horses. They cinch them a lot tighter, and they've got a lot more walk in that handhold. But the horses are booking a lot harder too. I always say, I fell off of more horses than most people have rode.
Well, like I said before, I learned to practice from Jack, and he didn't talk about enough about his practice sessions. You learned how to just practice hard. I mean, we practiced, had to have guys come and rope at my house after I spent time with Jack, and they didn't usually want to come back. And the other difference, they're right, with the sponsorships and the patch programs, and that's all spectacular. I think that, you know, the money is so much more, and it's something that we've all wanted. We're not, you know, to say that we would be jealous of what they've got now, I wouldn't say that, because we lived through a great period in the rodeo, and now they're living through another great period in rodeo. But when, you know, Jack talks about working, and I would have to go to my job, and then I would come home and I'd run 20 calves, and then I would flank and tie until dark. And then on Thursday after work, I would get in my truck and I would drive to California. And I would rope, and I would drive home, and I would be at work Monday morning. And that, and I did that some by myself. Now, when I went with Sam, I couldn't get him to drive that much, so we couldn't do that. But I mean, you know, and that was just, you know, I'd go to Oakdale and Red Bluff, and it wasn't always that way. But now, I mean, like Justin Kimsey, a bulldogger from Kennewick, who I kind of helped get started, and we've stayed really good friends, and I talk to him about every week, and you know, he left and went to Logandale. Now he went to Red Bluff. He'll go on to Clovis, and you know, he won't be home for, you know, a couple more weeks, and that's great. That's the way it should be, because he's rested. He's now on those trips that I did. That was kind of stupid, because I can't really say I won a lot, but that was the way I had to do it, because I had to have Sam actually help me. I can't even remember where we were at, but I was talking about having to go back to that job, and I had started shoeing horses a little bit, and he goes, well, you know, if you just start shoeing more horses, you wouldn't have to go to that job. And so 40 years later, I'm still shoeing horses, and so I owe all that to Sam. But I think it's great now, the way that these guys, because they are athletes, they're being treated like athletes. The Cowboy Channel has done such a great thing for them, and it's also made it. And I was talking about earlier today. If Cowboy Channel would have been around when Tuffy was rodeoing, he'd be a superstar.
Yeah.
He would have been. Everybody would know who Tuffy Morrison was. But not Sam. Yes, it's on. I left it on.
Jack talking about guys putting clinics on reminds me that they've really increased the expertise, I think, by the guys putting clinics on. And it reminded me of a clinic I put on, I don't know, 100 years ago, but it must have been about 40, and nobody showed up. It was in White Swan or something. It's a long drive home. When you go put your clinic on, you're riding around the arena by yourself. Pretty soon it's just time to go home. Get back with the irrigation shovel. And Tuffy, they're talking about the bucking horse ridings, and I see Tony Whipple sitting back there. We went to college together. I got on 2 bareback horses in college, but I wouldn't let him put the flank strap on to make a buck. And the two guys that were picking up were on the bulldogging team. Well, you know, when the bulldogger gets off the bulldogging horse, the horse runs past. Well, it didn't go very good when I tried to get off the bucking horse onto the bulldogging horse. He took off. Fortunately, it was real close to Chutes, because I wasn't very brave about getting out there very far. And then I got on 2 bulls at Topnish and at the college rodeo. Tuffy was judging, I remember that. And it was pretty cool, because the girls were kind of gathered around. They gathered around the bull riders quite a bit more than they did us guys roping calves. So I was eating it up, and I remember the bull, and he was a young bull, but his horn came between the boards on the chute. And somebody walked by or something, and he threw his head like that and hit me on the leg. And I almost started crying. Bull riders don't cry. Anyway, it got real serious real quick. The bull jumped into the chute or something, and I fell off. And my good buddies, of which Tony Whipple was one, on the back of the chute. Oh, he needs a reride. He needs a reride. Come on, guys, I don't want a reride. I don't want to be a coward, but I don't want a reride. So that was the end of my rough stock career.
Jack, can I ask you if you guys will share your microphone with Tuffy? I'm going to basically say, audience, you guys have been listening in. Is there any questions you guys would like to chime in, stories or questions you'd like to ask these guys?
So I have a question for any and all of you. And you kind of mentioned you being in the box and seeing Fred and Cody and Joe and telling yourself that you do deserve to be there. But are there any athletes either in your, or cowboys either in your event or just in the arena where you saw them as a rookie or as a permit holder thinking, yeah, that's going to be the face of rodeo for 5 to 10 years? Any cowboys that you saw that you said they're going to be good?
Well, yes, there was a Dean Olivers and a Don McLaughlins and those kind of guys, but when Roy Cooper came along, that changed a lot of things in the tie-down event. And then there was guys that came after him, but the one I really remember kind of getting things changed with Roy Cooper in the tie-down.
Yeah, I remember that too. There's not many people who make those dramatic changes in an event, but I remember when I was home one time and my grandpa Clyde and Vernon Lawrence were great friends, and Vernon was a real good calf roper in his day, and I was practicing and he'd watched me rope, and he was just after my grandpa. He can't be getting off like that. He can't do that. He can't do that. And Clyde kind of looked at him and he said, "Have you watched Roy Cooper? If he doesn't get off like that, he's never going to win anything." And but that's how. So those were two older guys who noticed that, and who that guy was just did something that nobody else did ever. I mean, and so I mean that was he's still, even for me, he's the guy.
I agree.
In the rough stock events, there was Jim Shoulders, and then there was Larry Mahan, but then you had Ty Murray, and then we had Trevor Brazil, and now we've got Stetson Wright. So those are the guys that people pay money for tickets for to come watch rodeos.
We were talking earlier, looking at the stuff over there, Trevor's things, and we were talking about Stetson. And right now, he's the guy, obviously. And the sad thing about it is, he'll never touch Trevor's records, not because he's not good enough. It's the events that he works. The physical toll will just make it. Ty Murray was as great as they were, but eventually the physical toll took that, and so, but yeah, that entire family right now is like, yeah, what's the one that showed up that was actually the youngest brother of the first family? Can't remember his name. Stu. Yeah, we saw him last year at Ellensburg. Who is Stu? Who's this guy? He didn't get. We hadn't gone long enough. He didn't get blue shirt, so we didn't know who he was. But yeah, that family is probably, I'm gonna say, done more right now to bring recognition to rodeo than anybody.
Have any of you ever read the book about the Wright family and their ranching stuff?
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. There's one of those Wright boys that spends most of his time in jail. I've never heard about him, but yeah, I think his name's Calvin. But it's an interesting book. It's really good if you get a chance to read it.
It's really well written.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really well written.
I'm not above brown nosing little. I see all the ladies here. Let's not forget the barrel racing. It's one of the favorite events. Really.
You got that microphone over? Yeah,
Shut it
he's just not holding it. You want me to
I'm
hold it
not
for you?
I'll right in my teeth. The people really enjoy watching the horses and watching the clock up on the wall. I've always felt that the bull riding, like going to a stock car race, they like to see the wrecks. But I think the second favorite event at the rodeo is the barrel racing, where the people can look at the horses and watch them compete. It's just a really neat event that doesn't get enough credit, I think.
And he's always playing up to the girls. It's always been that way. He actually, he's right. There, when we were running things with the circuit, there was a pole that, we used to do a lot of poles back then, and yeah, barrel racing was always number 2 right after the bull riding. And it also, if you ever put on a rodeo, you'd realize it is the fastest event to run. They're always worried about, you know, oh, I gotta get them barrels, and it is the fastest event, and that's why it's so captivating. And my wife is sitting here, and Sam showed me up, so I have to talk about the barrel racing. Anyway, no, it is, and the horses, the quality of horses and everything. But, and, you know, here at Ellensburg, it's unique because they're not used to that long run, and it used to be even longer before the Gold Buckle Club. It's a long way to that first barrel, and I've only ridden a barrel horse one time. She asked me to ride her horse through so she could watch it, and I came back and gave her the reins and said, never again. That's the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And I will never do it again. They deserve a lot of credit. Was that better than you?
We got an opportunity, there are a couple women here, ladies here who competed, and I was going to say an opportunity to, would you like to, if I handed you the microphone, would you talk about what it's like to barrel race at the Ellensburg Rodeo?
Who are we talking to? You? Me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Introduce yourself and then just talk about what competing at Ellensburg is like.
Yeah. Down here. Okay. Hi, I'm Patty Griffith, and the first time I entered Ellensburg was 1969, and I was 17. And back then they did a little different. They had the barrel race separate, and they took the top 6 fastest times and put them on Monday. So I was lucky enough to be one of those, and we ran from not the direction they run now. We ran from the buck and chute, which at that time was in the corner, and then now it's been switched around, and then where the Gold Buckle Club is, that used to be the alley, and we would run super fast. It was awesome. Out that alley to the first barrel, and I was lucky enough to place in the short go again in '92. Just a little bit of spread there, and but it's been a great rodeo. I went there many times. Know these guys up here, and it's a great thing. It's grown so much, and it was good times.
Chris or Kim, interested in? Sure. Yeah.
Oh, please don't give her my name.
I'm ready to go. In person. Introduce yourself.
Chris, whatever you do, tell us about him on that horse.
Yeah, it was great. The only way he would get on it is if he was actually carrying a rope, so that was exceptional to watch. Somebody trying to run barrels with a rope. Yeah. I'm Chris Powers. I'm Jim Powers' wife, and we rodeoed for 30 years. And coming to Ellensburg was always great. I had a great big black horse that loved the Ellensburg Rodeo Arena. Rodeoed with Patty, rodeoed with Kim, made a lot of friends. And Ellensburg was always the greatest place to run. It really, really was. Lost my hat running out down the alley one year, and told my husband as I was going out, made a really good run, and I said, honey, I lost my hat. And by the time he went to get it, it was already in the Gold Buckle room. He had to go try to confiscate it from the guy that took my hat. So yeah, love Ellensburg. Ellensburg's great. Rodeoing with these guys have been great. Being the wife with a couple kids, with Jim rodeoing with Sam was interesting. It was great. It was really a good time. It was really interesting. But we all grew up together, and it's been wonderful. Kim has a story to tell. Yeah, you do. Tell me about Max. Yeah. Max flying
Don't
in.
let her get away
Okay,
with that.
but the teacher has a wait time, like we will wait until,
Oh my God. Sam knows it. Okay. The one about Max.
I see Bill Lau back there, and you've never had agony in your life unless you put on a rodeo and the barrel racers don't like the ground. They think that's no good, and it's way worse way worse than, anyway, Bill Lau really helped the Ellensburg Arena for the footing when he joined the board and started working with the dirt. It is just one of the premier events. There were women that would come up for the Northwest Run, and they wouldn't enter Ellensburg because they didn't like the footing. They were afraid they were going to cripple their horse or cripple themselves with the horse falling down. So that's one more contribution from somebody that didn't participate in the arena, but he did. He did participate by making it better for the contestants.
And he brought his own equipment to do it.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that Edie Longfellow, one of the greatest rodeo secretaries in the United States, in fact in the Northwest for sure. He's sitting right back there, stand up.
Edie, do you want to talk?
No way.
That's what I think.
So I'll talk about Edie. Edie was like, well, she's just like family to all of us. I mean, Sam was president when I was president. Edie made us look like we were brilliant, and it really wasn't us. I know it wasn't Sam. But, Edie has made the Columbia River Circuit what it is today, and continues to try to do that. But more than that, even secretary, and I remember going to Puyallup, and I got to take my oldest son with me, who was not very big, and what was the name of the Basset Hound when he was just a puppy? Bullet. Bullet was just a puppy, and I don't know if you were ever at Puyallup, the rodeo office was actually like a mile and a half from the arena. It was over on the other side, and then you had to go through the whole carnival to get to the arena. And I was getting ready to go, and Jeffrey saw Bullet, and oh my God, there's a puppy, and he just told me, just let him play with the dog. And I came back after I was done, and he was still under the table playing with the dog. But that shows the level of family. I mean, that wasn't her grandson, that wasn't, but it was. I mean, he was still a part of, and she, helped me through a lot of stuff, and so all of us have learned that, and the rodeo community is so strong because of people like Edie, helping dummies like me not lose my child.
Again, audience, guys, any questions for these gentlemen?
I have a question.
Sure, let me come over
Was
to you.
there any time that these four gentlemen ever traveled together?
Yeah, the question was,
In
did you
their
travel
career, did
together?
you guys ever travel together?
All four of us at one time?
All four, or just a combination of any?
In one rig?
Yeah.
I want to know.
No rig big enough.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, I think what she's getting at is if we did it very much. Sam and I went to a lot of rodeos together.
Okay.
Fact is, I took him to his first one at Roseburg, Oregon, and I went over to the office and paid my entry fees and stuff, and I came back to saddle up my horse, and my blankets are all laying out on the ground. Well, he went ahead and saddled his. I said, the next time we go to rodeo and I find my saddle and stuff laying on the ground, you're not going again, because there's places where that saddle wouldn't be laying there. And I'd been to the winter rodeos, and I know one guy for sure, he had a Cadillac and had all of his clothes in the back seat. They broke in and took all of his clothes. So you got to be careful, and it's worse now. So anyway, Tuffy and I went to Red Bluff that time. I don't think you and I, did we?
Yeah.
We went to
I was on my
Williams,
permit. That summer, we went to Joseph. You took me to Joseph.
We went to St. Paul and Williams.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was a pickup camper load.
Yeah. That's my better
Yeah.
judgment,
Yeah.
It was Buzz Beth, Jack Wallace,
Bud,
Kayser,
Bud Stight
Bud
and Harold Holtz was in that run. And we got back, And somebody asked Sam, how far is it up there? And he says, 6 cases. I really don't remember any of us winning anything.
So yeah, I guess the short answer is yes, we all, I mean, Jack took me that one year, and then Sam and I traveled together for 3 or 4, something like that. It was just different, you know, now these guys, they've all got living quarters trailers, and you know, and so they take their families most of the time. I mean, if I'd have known about homeschooling, we wouldn't have had a house. So, I mean, you know, that's I've always joked about that. We'd just been gone. But homeschooling wasn't a thing back then. But yeah, it's evolved to the point where guys don't, well now maybe with diesel the way it is, they're maybe bunching up more, but back then that was just the way you had to go, because it's the only way you could afford to go, because you would have to get 2 or 3 guys, and because it's just always usually just Sam and I, because nobody else liked him. We had Bob Kelly went with us, and yeah, and
Williams Lake 2 or 3 times.
That's why Bud Stice wasn't with us that one time, Sam.
Oh, yeah.
so. No, I'm picking on Sam, and he deserves it, and but we're, you know, our boys are what, maybe a month apart. I mean, that's how, I mean, they were born when we were traveling together, and that was one reason we were traveling together. Both our wives were pregnant, and so our families, you know, growing up, Jeff and Cass spent all their youth playing under the grandstands and you know, running around and those kids, and then today Sam's son Cass wins 4th in the go around and 6th in the average at Red Bluff today, and so that's
Speaking of under the grandstand, Dean Oliver had, I think, 4 daughters, and the oldest one would go with him a lot. First place she would go is underneath the grandstand and pick up the money that people
One time Daniel asked about the preparation, getting ready to compete, and the sport, as all sports, in my opinion, have evolved, whether it was basketball, football, and they say, well, they were tying calves in 12 or 13, and they were making baskets, and a high point game was 18. I believe in any sport that the guys that are great in their generation or their decade can compete with other generations or decades, because it's not really the physical attributes, it's the fire they have inside to excel. And it doesn't matter if they played basketball or rodeoed in the 50s or 60s or they do it now. It's the fire inside their chest that makes them want to be the best there, and they would be able to figure out the expertise or the shortcuts today that maybe weren't common in the past, and whether it's in basketball with the 3-point shot or whatever, but it's the fire inside to compete that the great ones have, that it doesn't matter when they play, they're going to figure out how to try and be the best of their.
Any question?
Yeah, ask them, I want to know
Here, I'll
what
just
they,
let you ask.
hope it's on, it is. So, I want you guys' opinion on what do you think of the breakaway roping being added?
Well, it's made the price of horses go up. But it is an event a little bit, not like, well, it's women, and they can do it so fast. It's a real crowd pleaser. It doesn't take very long to run it off. And what's really fun for me is to watch like at Red Bluff, where they have that score out there a little ways, where they have to go run and catch them instead of taking 2 swings and roping. But there's a lot of women that can dang sure rope, and Speed Williams' daughter, who's a 8-time team roping champion, I think she'll win the world this year, and she's like 18 years old. Callie Williams is her name. The breakaway is really good.
I kind of agree with Jack. I would like to see them hang the score out there a little more because, and you watch it, if you watch the Cowboy channel, and watch it to the winner, and they rope inside in the small, you know, and everybody gets excited about being 1-9, but they're coming across there and they're just 1-2 throw. I mean, when I tried to be a team roper unsuccessfully, Willie Hart told me, if you're going to rope at the rodeo, it's first swing points at the steer, second swing is flat, and the third swing you throw. Doesn't matter where the steer's at. Well, they do the same thing a lot indoors in the breakaway roping. 1, 2, and they throw no matter where it's at. And so in that way, sometimes it is, you'll think about, if you watch the team roping, sometimes it's not very good watching. But it's because they're all trying to be 4. And that's how you have to do it. And in the breakaway roping indoors, it's that way. But like Jack said, when you get outside and then you get to watch the horsepower, and I think that's what they're underselling in the breakaway roping, is those girls are riding some of the best horses that there are out there. I mean, as a calf roper, as a guy, I'm just gonna be honest with you, watching breakaway roping is like watching paint dry for me. That's me. Okay. For the average person in the stands, it is very exciting. But what I like to watch is the horses, and I think they need to sell that more, and that would be hanging the score out there. You watch them here at Ellensburg, they rope behind the same score that the calf ropers do. And so they got to go out there and get them, and it just shows up. The horses and the horsewomen, you know, the same. Sam, it's funny. I remember this. The cream's always going to rise. Yeah. Some of us, you know, the average guys, we're going to win some once in a while. We're going to get a little press. We're going to be that. But the cream will always rise, and the really good ropers will show out, and that's the way I think it should be in the breakaway roping, is they will show out, and the really good horses will show out. So, see, I did listen to you some.
Look, Jim, you don't need to, you're not that old. You watch a breakaway roping to watch the horses? Now, come on. What's the deal?
And now we're getting to the real root of Jack Wallace. What I really learned from Jack Wallace.
Jim, could you explain the score, please?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I guess I didn't really say. The score is actually the length of the barrier. And we say it that way because that's kind of your score in the cow. How far you have to let the animal out in order to not break the barrier. Head start.
Yep.
Okay, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and so when you have a longer score, obviously the cattle are out there farther, and then that you've got to go, and then they have the advantage. They have the true advantage. I don't really think that at a real short score like they have in those buildings, the cattle have the advantage like they do here at Ellensburg. And you got to go get them. You got to be able to ride. You got to have a horse that will do the job, and you got to be able to sit there and score. That's harder. That doesn't get enough credit. Guys who can knock the barrier out, which means they hit that's another term that I forget. Everybody doesn't know. Anyway, if you hit that barrier rope at exactly the right moment, you will actually knock it out of the pin, and that's perfect. And that means that you have hit it as perfect as you can get, and that's the best that you can do. And so the people who can score good, ride good horses, and rope good, obviously, but they can all throw rope good. So that separates the good from the great, I guess would be the best way to put it.
I always thought that if you were 1 foot late, 1 foot before the barrier broke, that you was 30 feet farther down the arena.
All right.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, we were talking about the barrel racing, and the barrel racing was voted, we took a survey, the Ellensburg Rodeo did, and he is right, it's, after the bull riding, it's the second most popular event in the rodeo. I had a barrel racing story. I've worked the grounds at Ellensburg, and I was out there at 5 o'clock working the ground, and this gal comes out, and I don't follow it. Well, she's riding around and comes up and asks if she can ride. And I go, yeah, just stay all the way to the tractor. Well, it was Charmaine James, and she came out every morning, and this was from the Monday before. She was out there every morning as I was working the grounds, and they were talking about Jack and those guys. You have no idea how hard they work to learn how to tie and how much they spend learning the skill of the roping. But the barrel racers, the good ones, were out there. In the finals one day at the Ellensburg Rodeo, I worked the grounds, and Lisa Lockhart, who at that time was the second best barrel racer in the world, she comes out and her horse slips on the second barrel. And she knew who I was, and I was standing in the gold buckle room because I was watching what was going on. The next girl came out and ran the 17-1-2, and Lisa, which was just a hair off the arena record. After the rodeo, Lisa comes up to me and says, you know, I was going to chew your ass out until that girl ran that 17.
Barrel racing, this involves rodeo, but the barrel racing is maybe the most lucrative of all the events. They have these futurities, they call them, for horses, and there's a gal named Cathy Mallory. I think she went to like 25 rodeos last year and went to the finals, but she's won over $6 million without ever going to a rodeo. So it's a pretty lucrative deal for the barrel racers.
I'm looking around the audience. Is there any other comments or questions?
I'd like to mention one thing, that John Goodat's here. I really do miss the rodeo articles, and especially with the local cowboys and cowgirls that John used to write. Those are really a neat deal that you did, John.
I've got one more question for you guys, but is there any stories? You guys have done a pretty good job. Any stories you want to tell about each other before I ask my last question?
Jimmy's already done a pretty good job. I don't think he's done a great job.
There's a reason why Jimmy's sitting there.
You know, I do have one story, not about these guys, because these guys really are my heroes. They've taught me more than I could never repay everything that I learned from them. But Daniel had asked me to talk about the difference coming from being a contestant to now running the Chutes, which was something I never ever intended to do. Just happened to be that the guy that was running the Chutes had been sick, and he called me and wanted me. He had Toppenish and said, could you just come and kind of hang out, and if I get sick and I can't keep going, he'd been going through cancer treatment, you can take over. So we get the barrier all set up, and he says, well, you're on your own. And he left.
Sick.
Yeah, I'd never, it's the only thing that I'd never done in rodeo in my life. I had never put a neck rope on an animal, and I was scared to death that I was going to kill somebody. Because it can get bad, the ropes, if they go the wrong way, you know, you can, and it's especially bad in the calf roping, because the neck rope's the neck rope is what breaks away and pulls the barrier. And the neck ropes for the steers are bigger and heavier, so they fall straighter down. The neck ropes on the calves, they're obviously smaller and lighter, and it's really easy to get them to fly back the wrong way and hit a rope or trip a horse, do whatever. And so, and being an ex-calf roper, I thought, well, that would just be perfect. So anyway, we get through Top Nation, and anyway, he's still sick come Ellensburg. Now I'm terrified. I'm not doing Toppenish, I'm not doing Cleellum, I'm doing Ellensburg. And I'm just like mortified. And so, sure enough, about 10 calves in, Marty Yates runs a calf, and what I've found is that calf pushers nowadays think they're competing. They push calves like they're the ones actually competing. And this guy pushed this calf so hard that the rope has to fall on the left side of the calf to make it. I mean, it's really more complicated than it, and the fact that I can do it is amazing because I'm not that smart. But you have to make sure that the rope falls to the left. Perfectly, it comes all the way around me and the guy that's opening the gate. Everybody's safe. Well, he pushed this calf so hard that he pushed my rope over the other side of the calf, and although the neck rope was right, it still popped back and caught Marty's horse a little bit. Not real bad, but I was mortified. And the judge comes over and he goes, well, he says, these guys, they said that one was pretty close. And I don't know why, but it irritated me because I saw how close it was. I'm right there and I'm already mortified. And I have this voice that none of you will ever hear, but when I coached high school wrestling, it scared my kids to death. And in that voice, I told him that to tell them to keep their damn pushers out of my rope and that wouldn't happen, and that if they have a problem, they can come and talk to me. And I looked, and right across from me was Haven Medjid, and he had that same look that my wrestlers had, and I never had another trouble, and they stayed out of my rope. It was great. From that moment on, it was easy. I would say it's easy, but now I enjoy it. You know, I got by that fear. That is one of the scariest jobs anybody can do, is running that. And I have all the respect. I mean, I just thought it was easy because Stub Johnson did it forever. Stub was like another grandpa to us, and he did everything, and he handled it so well. And you know, but well, and Alan did it. Yeah, Alan McCrae. All those guys have done that, and I have such a great respect for them now. And but to go from knowing what it's like to compete to them be in that position, it's now I think it's really cool. Now that I'm over my fear. And I appreciate that the Ellensburg Rodeo Committee has given me that chance. But it's just anyway that it's just a really strange transition, and so did that explain what you wanted me to explain? Oh, okay, it's off. There you go. Now it's on.
I have a funny story that's not about us three. Or us four. There's some math for a cowboy. My friend Darrell Sewell, and he was the king of the bulldoggers in this area. And I was at his house the other day, and he was told a story about Tom Ferguson. And him and Tom had been to Calgary, and Tom won first, and Darrell won second. Well, at the same time, Frank Shepperson from Wyoming, he was the world's champion bulldogger, and because the bulldoggers usually get on somebody else's horses, like Tuffy was talking about, and if they get on somebody else's bulldogging horse and that guy hazes, the bulldogger hazer gets 25%. So Frank was just winning good, and he had an airplane and could fly. And Tom was being a smartass like he can, and him and Darrell were there, and they were both on top of the world because they'd won that money at Calgary, and they were at Nampa at that time. And Frank was standing there, and Tom said to Frank, have you got your airplane here? Daryl and I are hot, we want to get to some rodeos. And Frank says, yeah, I'm in my plane. And Tom said, well, this is what Daryl said. Tom said, well, I've never flown it, but I'll fly real close to the ground until I learn how to And there's something about that logic that didn't make sense. Anyway, those are the kind of stories that you get to hear and tell that you just, that's priceless. That's priceless.
Well, my gentlemen, if you guys, I think our last question going forward is, you guys have all shared the work that went into it, into a rodeo career, the amount of work and practice that it takes, the miles driving, the time away from family, all of those type of things. But you also said you've done it for 20 years, and after you competed, all of you gentlemen have kept involved. The love of rodeo has kind of been there for the whole. Not just in the competition, not just your event, but now that you're giving back, like you said before. Kind of final thoughts, if you guys would, kind of view from the chute kind of questions, like what is it you love about rodeo? Why has it been a lifetime?
It's the people around you. It's the volunteers. People that you would never expect are down there helping. Lawyers. Guys right out of jail, Nash Valley, everybody was helping. Well, it's just amazing to me. And that's what's kept Ellensburg going over all these years, is the volunteers. And I just hope I can help out myself.
Yeah, Tuffy is 100% right in the volunteers in this community, and it's just great to see everybody that do contribute. And one thing that I got out of rodeo is, the friendships you make. Granted, a lot of them I haven't seen for a long, long time, but you made friends while it lasted. And competition-wise, I still like to compete, but it's not like trying to beat the animal or another guy. I'm competing within myself just to see if I can still do it. Yeah, that's kind of tough.
So you're going to find a theme. It is the people, and one of the things that I've found about Ellensburg is that people ask me, oh God, that must be hard. And actually, to be honest, other than the amount that you have to do and the pressure of making sure that barrier works right, this is the best crew that I've ever worked with. I mean, they make it so easy for me to run the rope and chutes because they have such a great crew of volunteers back there. And so, yeah, it is all the things that you learn and all the things that you go. I mean, it is the people. I mean, Sam and I can not see each other for a year, and we'll run into him at the tent at the Ellensburg, and pretty soon it's an hour and a half has gone by. After him, I traveled with a guy named Jerry Gentry. We might not talk for a year, and Jerry will call me, or I'll call him, and we'll talk for 4 hours. And so your relationships, when you spend that much time, and your life a lot of times depends on them staying awake behind the wheel. And that scared people to death when I was driving. But it really does. You become bonded with those people, and that's the greatest thing about the sport, as all the people that become your family.
I remember when I was 19 or 20 and thought I was quite a bit better than I really was. And my dad told me, Sam, he said, you might win a few buckles and trophies and a little bit of money, but he said when it's all done, it'll be the friends that you've made that you value. And I think that's why a guy tries to participate when he's past his prime. He still wants to see his friends and compete, like Jack said. But Johnny Jones, when they put him in the Hall of Fame, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I went because I respected him so much, and that was all that Johnny talked about. And he'd won the national finals 2 or 3 times, and won the world 2 or 3 times. And he just talked the whole time about the friends that he'd made, and throughout. It's not just the friends in the valley or in your business. It's throughout the West, and that's a pretty cool opportunity to get to travel and do that. And it's because of the rodeo.
I'd like to add just a little bit of what Sam said. Johnny Jones was a world champion steer wrestler. And he's in our Hall of Fame. How many of you in here know Robin Louise Atchison? They were in an airport in California, and they saw on this guy's cap it said vintage wines or something like that. And they got to talking to him, and he asked them where they were from, and they said from Ellensburg. Well, do you know Sam Kayser? That's the airport down there in California someplace, and that's the way it is.
Thank you guys so much for coming and sharing your stories with us tonight. I'm still looking forward to having you guys coming and talking, and it's been everything that I hoped it would be. So, well, thank you guys for the time and for the experiences you guys have shared. Thank you all for being here. The next one will be on the 23rd of the next month. We'll be focused on some of the things we're doing as a Hall of Fame and our efforts and what we're preserving. That'll be the topics, and Jonathan Pinyar will be here to talk about the saddle. We'll have a book that will debut, so some of the stuff we've got that's pretty cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.